Good evening. Just getting set up. Suddenly realised that I couldn't make this work on my iPad. So I'm going live now, hoping that people are going to notice and join the right stream. The other one should now be cancelled. Okay, can you hear me? First question. Great, we've got sound. So, slightly different setup to last time. I can actually see the conversation, although my daughter will be down in a minute when we kick off properly at past. So I just wanted to make sure technically I was in the right place before we started. So that's good. Good to see you, Jeff. Good to see you, James. Hi, Wendy. Nice to see you too. Rob Rims Models. Hello. Good evening. So I've been looking forward to this. It came this morning. I'm reckoning most people are getting theirs today, tomorrow. So yeah, it's a nice box actually, but we'll talk about it in a minute. We'll just wait for some others to join. Good evening, Phil. Yes, Rob, I am very well, thank you. In fact, I'm a little bit excited because I've been looking forward to this most of the year, and I actually saw it at Telford and was able to then go over the hall and have a look at the Qatari one as well. So I think I've got the better of the two, if I'm honest, but we'll talk about that perhaps a little bit later. So the plan for tonight is to go through the box, the instructions, like I would ordinarily do on a first impressions, but the quality that you usually get from me won't be there because YouTube slow down the rate so that it doesn't buffer for people. So it'll be a bit more grainy, but I will re-record a proper first impressions of this, which will come out couple of days later with some still photographs and what have you, and some close-ups. So this is just a little bit of fun. Let's have a look what's in the kit, how have things been put together. That's the plan, and we won't have a look in the box until past because that's the time I've told everyone. Hi John, good to see you. How are things in Australia? Evening, Kevin. So my daughter is on the way, so she'll be managing the chat for me tonight and keeping you all in good order. Now, last time we had a little system where she'd give me a tap on the leg with her foot if she needed to ask a question, but some people mentioning no names, James, may have taken slight advantage of that system, so she's going to raise a hand today. Right, now then, one or two of you have commented on the box art, which is lovely, but if you order it from the Airfix website, you also get this A3 poster, which actually is an expanded version, so you get a strip at the top here with more aircraft in, and a strip at the bottom, wider strip, which has got more ships in. It's actually a really nice piece of artwork, isn't it? Really lovely. So you get this poster free, no extra charge, and obviously if you've got Airfix membership, you can get your 10% off, which I did. So it's not too expensive with the 10% off actually. So yeah, it's a lovely bit of artwork, and you could easily frame that and maybe put a different logo on it, I don't know. But yeah, the free poster is a nice touch, I think. Right, my daughter Daisy is now with me. Say hello, Daisy.
Hello.
Louder than that.
Oh, hi.
There you go, there's my daughter. Right, so you will have, if you've seen my Telford video, you'll have seen my daughter. She's going to be keeping you all in order. We are just over 5 minutes away from kicking this off properly. It's difficult not to get in the box when I know everyone's waiting, but there are more people likely to join, so we'll just hold off for a minute. What have we got now? 17 watching. Those of you who are watching, please by all means put the live chat on, join in with the conversation. If you want me to show you anything particular, then just put it in the chat. My daughter will pick it up and she will raise a hand to let me know that we need to be talking. But like I say, I can see the chat as well. So yeah, please get involved in the chat. It makes for a nice experience for everyone, and nobody bites, and even if they do, they can't get to you. So...
Someone just said I could clip you around the ear.
Yeah, was that James by anyone? Was it to boldly go?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The man's trouble. I can see what you're doing, James. I can see what you're doing. Yeah, I can also see what you're writing, Daisy. So.
Okay.
Okay. Right. Okay. Hello, David Evans. Good evening to you. So the character with the blue spanner and the very long, I'm not creative name is my daughter.
Yeah.
Evening, Jeff72. Nice to see you. Right. So how many of you have got this on order already, and how many of you are just thinking, waiting to see what it's like? I'm interested to know. Good evening, Hobby Time. Nice to see you. We will start in just under 5 minutes. And what have we got watching? 20 watching. Okay. So for those of you who've just joined, seek out the little button that allows you to enter the live chat and see the conversation. Please, by all means, get involved in the video today. You can ask questions, ask me to show you things more closely, and my daughter will make me aware, and we can do that for you. The whole idea of today is that we have a good look at what's in the box. I will go through the instructions, I will go through all the sprues, we'll see how it's all been put together and what the quality is like, and so on and so forth. So just like my ordinary first impressions, YouTube make the video quality a bit less than it normally is to prevent it from buffering, so it might look a little bit fuzzy, but we will be doing a proper recorded first impressions later on, but this should be a lot of fun. I have to say, Phil, I never built the original Airfix 124 Spitfire. I came very close to it once. I believe that had a bit of photo etching on the in the cockpit, I seem to recall, or at least they released it with photo etch at some point. But yeah, I never built it. In fact, the only 124 scale aircraft I have built to date is the Hellcat, which was a lovely kit. Needed a little bit of help to bring that together. And I have another 124 kit, the Typhoon, in my stash. I have to say, this box is a lot smaller. So what are we, a couple of minutes away. So, 124 scale. Usually this comes in a massive glossy box. And recently, Airfix made a change, and we've talked about it before, where this red strip was removed. And I think the box looks a lot better for it. But there are a couple of changes again, and Airfix are truly trying to make this a really nice product experience. So there's a couple of changes to the box that we're going to just talk about before we get going in earnest. Firstly, the box isn't glossy, it's matte. So it has a nice feel to it, the light isn't bouncing off it, and it just feels like a slightly higher quality product. It's a different size box, so they've gone with a deeper box rather than a long, wider box like they did with the Hellcat. But this is quite interesting. On the bottom of the box, we have an embossed Airfix logo, which I have never seen before. So,
standout build from SNW.
Standout build from SNW. Oh, Scale Model World. And what was your greatest standout build? So, just asking you that question, Daisy. What was the build you liked the most? Was it that flying dragon?
That flying dragon. I really like that. Yeah. Okay. And I did enjoy it.
Yeah. So I think Airfix have done a good job with the box. It looks really nice. We've already talked about the artwork, which it is stunning. So we are at 20:30 by my reckoning. So we will get going. So welcome everyone to the live stream. I hope you're all going to enjoy this as much as I am. I have not looked in this box as yet. So I've cut the tape just for ease of me not having to fiddle around, but I have not looked in. So we're genuinely going to go through this for the first time together. So we have a red box because it's a new tool. It tells us it's 124 scale Supermarine Spitfire and gives the mark number there. And then our kit number is A17001. New release, new tool, made in the UK. If we look on the side here, we have three CAD images of what we might have in the box. It tells us we've got cartograph decals, which we knew would be happening, and it does tell us that that it's made in the UK rather than made in India or sometimes Korea, which are the other two places that an Airfix kit can come from. So I don't know what plastic we're getting in this. We will have to see. The two sides have different artwork depicting a top-down view of the Spitfires, and you can see the uneven black and white stripes, which I think is a nice touch. Quite often they're a bit too perfect, but the main side that we're interested in is this side. So we have the usual layout with a bit of history and 5 paint schemes. 5 paint schemes, not the usual 4. We'll have a look at those in a minute. Then we've got our paint call-outs, obviously Humbrol, and the usual format where we've got all the generic paints, and then A, B and C need another 5 paints, D needs another 3 paints, and E needs another 4 paints. So depending on what you're doing, it's a skill level 4 as we would expect, and you get 4 flying hours. So let's have a look at the paint schemes on the side of the box. So we have paint scheme A, aircraft flown by squadron leader Johnny Plagueis, is that? I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Number 126, Persian Gulf Squadron, Royal Air Force, Harrowbeer, Devon, England, July 1944. Paint scheme B, which is my favourite, and we'll talk about why that is in a minute. Supermarine Spitfire, airfix, aircraft flown by Flight Lieutenant Ian Kelty, number 402 Squadron, City of Winnipeg, Royal Air Force, Kenley, Surrey, England, March 1943. And we can see there's a little maple leaf on there, so I think that means we've got a Canadian pilot. And the reason why I like this paint scheme the most of all of them is the decal on there is Popeye. I'm not sure if I can get that close enough. We'll probably see it better when we look at the paint schemes. Okay, paint scheme C, aircraft flown by Wing Commander James Edgar Johnny Johnson, number 402 Squadron, City of Winnipeg, Royal Air Force, Kenley, Surrey, England, summer 43. So has a different colour maple leaf on there, but no other nose decals or anything like that. Paint scheme D, aircraft flown by Captain Garth Jarrad, is that? Commanding Officer, 309th Fighter Squadron, 31st Fighter Group, United States Army Air Force, Italy, December 43. Now, that paint scheme is very similar to what I've done on a 172 Spitfire recently, and not dissimilar to the 148 Hawker that we did. Well, what's that called? Hurricane. So that's why I'm not doing that. Otherwise, I'd probably plumb for that one. It's got some nice markings, and I do like the blue undersides. Our last paint scheme, E, is GR2/33. Don't quite know what that means. Savory, I don't know, and it's someplace in France. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that. Early 1945. So French markings, has a really interesting tail, lots of decals on there, and I think a yellow stripe on the wing by the looks of it. All right, so that's the box. Like I say, it's quite a posh box with this little impression of Airfix on the back there, and it does look really nice and has a good feel to it. Right, while I'm opening the box, I'll just say hello to everyone. Hi Andy. Okay, so in the okay, so the first thing that greets us is the underside of the wings, not in a bag, though I can see we've got a bag in there, and we seem to have a paper divider. So I'm just going to have a, right, okay, we've got paper dividers. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift everything out of the box and put it in the lid so we can get to the instructions, which are no doubt in the bottom, and we'll go through the instructions first. So that's our underwing section. Then we've got our upper wing section.
I think they're using paper for sustainability.
Yeah, they have been talking about how they might get rid of bags, so I'm not sure I like that or not. What are people's thoughts on that? Then we've got the two fuselage halves. So the nose top section. Right, and then we seem to be back into bags. So clip arts. We have two sprues in that bag. It seems to be the new darker hard plastic. 2 sprues in that bag. Another 2 in that one. And then 1 in that one. Our instruction manual, which is a really beefy document. And then a large decal sheet. Now, interestingly, the first thing I'm spotting on the decal sheet is that we don't have, this is the second time, the Avro Anson was exactly the same. They haven't grouped the decals by common, paint scheme A, B, and so on. It's just made to squeeze in, and I'm sure that's a cost-saving attempt from Airfix to get the decals squeezed into a smaller bit of backing and remove some of the cost from the manufacturing process. As we know, the decals can often be the most expensive part of the kit content. So yeah, look at that lovely Popeye there. We will come back to the decals. Right, okay, so let's start with our instructions and get an understanding of how all this is supposed to go together. Right, so we have, as well as our instruction manual, we have the usual separate paint pages. So we'll have a look at those after the instructions. Okay, so we have an A4 colour standard style Airfix manual. With a bit of history and specifications on the top, the usual type of thing. And then we have our assembly icons, a little commentary on instructions as usual. All the icons seem to be the same, nothing changed there. And then, this is new, I've not seen this before, we have our colour chart, which has been done in the sort of the Airfix paint chart style. So that's really interesting. I think I quite like that. Usually the only real reference is as you go through the instructions and on the side of the box. So, and then obviously on the colour charts. So that's quite good. I can't remember if they did that on the Hellcat or not, to be honest. I've got a suspicion they might have done. So it might be a 1/24 scale standard, not sure. Anyway, let's flip over the page. Okay, then we have some instructions for decal placing. So cockpit decals, so various different markings within the cockpit, and know that they really deep dived into what they could do in the way of decals, and after they reviewed it, they added more decals, so that it should be quite decal heavy as we go through this. But it looks like we've got various notification stencils and bits and pieces in there, and it's pointing out where they all are, so we'll have to cross-reference that as we go through the build. Okay, so step 1, we start with the construction of the chair, four pieces, and we've got our paint instructions as normal. Then we've got more bits of framework, so that looks quite detailed already, and a backing plate, and then we've got plastic harnesses. Now I know instantly some people are going to dislike them and consider them to be too thick. But you know, if you paint them up, for me they don't look too bad, so it's personal taste. Then we've got the adjusting ratchet going on, and then we're into some of the bulkhead frames. So obviously the one that the chair seat gets mounted onto. So not dissimilar to building 148, just different sizes. Step 10 gets us into building what looks like a tub style cockpit. So we've got a floor, I can see we've got sides there, So we're building a cockpit tub that's going to sit inside the fuselage. We've got some quite detailed looking frames there. And they're using the system of red parts highlighting where you place the last parts, which is something I like about Airfix's instructions. Then we've got some detail going into the bulkhead there. Separate bottles is nice to see. It means you get a fully round bottle and not something that's half round forming itself into the side. So it's nice that they've made those details separate. Then we can see that we are building up the dials, and we have options here. So I think it's two clear parts. One is smooth and one is not smooth. It's got all the detail on, so you've got an option for putting a decal on or an option for painting. So whichever way you want to go, you've got an option. So that's really nice as well. No doubt there'll be aftermarket coming out for that at some point. So we can see the side piece going in there. Then once we've done that, we've got more items going in with more pipe work and stuff, and then the pedals. Not quite sure what that is, but some form of structure that braces across the two. All seems a fairly logical build process. And then we've got a bulkhead going in, and then we finally add the seat. So a lot of build paint as we go through the cockpit. Then we've got a further two bulkheads, which are individual pieces in their own right. 56, so that's aluminium, the call out for that. And we're at step 24. The support structures for those frames, and then the rest of the seat harness going in, which obviously is attached into one of the frames. Then we've got the steering mechanism going in place. That in itself looks nicely detailed. More gas bottles and various controls and bits and pieces going into the other side of the cockpit tub. Then we can see that going together, and then depending on which aircraft paint scheme you're choosing, we've got some various different options for the colours of this thing, so and whether it's included or not. So it's step 30 before effectively you've got to decide which paint scheme you want to be doing. Okay, how's the chat going, Days?
Good. Someone said, wonder how much detail you will see.
Well, we will get to the plastic parts and see. I'm just going to have a swig of my tea because my throat's getting a bit dry. Okay. What?
Oh, wait.
Oh. That was Daisy's hand, not mine. I don't wear nail varnish, just pointing that out. Okay. Right, okay everyone, let's crack on with this. Step 32, we've got tail section of the fuselage going in. Interesting that they're doing that. I guess it's so that they wouldn't lose any definition of the detail on the parts. So if that's the case, good. Then in step 34, we've got an option, and it's asking us to refer to step 44 on page 11. So that's to do with the cockpit door, I'm guessing. When building this model with the canopy in the close position, use part N4 as a jig to cut and file away the area highlighted in green. Okay. So there is a section there which you may want depending on how you're having the canopy. Okay, interesting. Step 35, we've got more options as well, depending on which version you're doing. Some form of electronic set of some type. Don't know much about the Spitfire, I've got to be honest. I know its history, but not how it goes together, if you like. Then we've got some more components going in, and we're putting it into the first fuselage half.
The tail may be a future option with different tails.
Yeah, it could be. It could be to allow a rester hook or something like that. That's a really good point. Okay, step 38. We've got that quite prominent flexible hose that goes in the side there. That's going in, and you can see it's weaving its way through, and they're giving you plenty of good photographs to make sure you get the positioning right, nice and easy, particularly that picture showing you where it goes. More options in step 39, different parts that are included or not included. And then step 40, we're starting to build up, it looks like the battery box to me, on its tray going in the back of the bulkhead there. Then we're putting in the little blanket, which is where the tail wheel will go. And then at step 44, we've got the options for having the entrance door open or closed. Now, on all the pictures I've seen so far, it looked like this brace here was moulded in, but it's clearly not. So I'm really happy about that, because I wondered from some of the shots that we've seen that have been shared so far, the CAD and what have you, whether they were dumbing that down a little bit, but clearly not. It's all separate parts, so that's great. It means it's easier to weather these bits and then assemble, so that's really, really nice. Looks like, depending on your options, you might have a little bit of filing to do, so some location lugs that need removing. And then we have another bulkhead going in, and there's a little note there that some aircraft were painted aluminium instead of cockpit green, so you've got a choice, whichever tickles your fancy. Then we've got step 48, A, B, C, D, and step 49, A through to D. So we're building up the tail parts here. So we've got a top and bottom side there with a location pin rather than the donut they've been using more recently, so that's interesting. Seems to have a location tab within the tab. And then on the flaps here, again, 2 location points, and we're not gluing that in, so that will be movable. And then we can see that coming together. So again, it's giving us options, but it's not really... right, okay. So there's different shapes there. So depending on which paint scheme you're doing, which aircraft you're doing. Okay, so we have different shaped tails. Then we've got 3-piece tailpiece going together, and then a separately moulded control for it, so that's nice. And it's actually got the control rod as well, which is usually missing and you've got to put in yourself. Remove the highlighted green area from the lower wing starboard side. Okay. So I can't... Oh, it's just there. So we're keeping one but getting rid of another. So that's clearly to do with some future releases, I'm imagining. And we've got 2 little strips that go where the ailerons are. And then we're making the wing brace up. Okay. Step 57, we're carrying on with the bottom of the wing. And we're starting to put some internal parts in. Nice to see that they are hollow or appear to be hollow, so they should look quite authentic. It's telling us that this is the undersurface colour, which is good, because I would naturally have gone with a cockpit green or an aluminium, so nice that they're calling that out, because I'd have got that wrong. Asking us not to glue that part in, interestingly. So a lot of this is repetition. Do one side, then do the other side. It's showing us the points where to glue. So that must be important to the construction. more wing spars, some pipe work, and then ammunition boxes. So you've got an option of having those on display or having the wings sealed up, or of course you could do one and on one wing and not on the other. Quite a few spars going in, so I'm guessing with the top sections of the wing opened up, you'll be able to see some of these, so that's a nice touch. Dividers going in and some pipe work, and then we're repeating on the other side. Step 82 now, we've got a clear part going in, so a light or a lens of some description, and then we're putting in the back end of the cannons, the wing cannons there. Then we've got, then the ammunition feed, and then we've got more guns going in, and then we repeat on the other side. And then we've got the options of fitting the cover plates, which go on the underneath. Gun bay doors can be left off to show the hidden detail, so again you could mix that up, but you will see a little bit through the opening where the shell ejector holes are. Step 97, and our fuselage is being attached to the wing. So we've gone through quite a lot of steps to get to put the fuselage on the wing, haven't we? But that's looking really superb already. So we can see that that's going to fit within the fuselage plastic, so that's interesting. Then we have options again for what we want on show through the upper part of the wing. We've got different bulges depending on which aircraft you're doing, so that's nice as well. And there's no biscuit fittings or anything, this is just plonk it on top, so let's hope that that's a nice good fit. Then we're building up what looks like the radiators and air scoops and what have you. So that builds up with several parts. I'm guessing that's, you've got an option for open or close, so it's not movable. So you'll have to pose it and then fix it into place.
No biscuits to go with the tea.
It does look like a tea box, doesn't it? It does look. What biscuits would they have? Be hardtack of some type, wouldn't it? Okay, we've got some bits of plumbing going in, so I'm guessing they'll be visible, and then we are on wing tips. Again, options depending on whether you want the clipped wing or the more traditional famous rounded tips. And again, it's all dependent on which one you're doing, the clipped wings being with the French version. Okay. Then we have a note: when building this model with all the cowling covers attached, there is no need to build the whole engine. Follow steps 115 to 135 on page 24 to 26 and miss out steps 136 to 198 on 27 and 36. Then carry on from step 199. Okay. I'm guessing that you need some of the engine for mounting the propeller, so you can't build the engine up and show it separately on the side. You're either building the engine or you're not. So I think you'd be mad to not show the engine off at this scale. So I'm no doubt that the cowlings will loose fit on, or you might be able to put some around the side and show half on, half off, because obviously they're all screwed into place in real life. So there might be some options there. You'll have to have a look when you come to build it. But we are at 115 and we're starting to build up the Merlin engine. So it's got quite a detailed looking framework which attaches into that bulkhead there. It's not telling you what the parts of this are, so if you don't know anything about the engine, like me, you don't really know what you're putting together, but it looks quite nicely detailed. That's a nice little addition as well. So we've got the framework that the fuselage skin bolts into, so it will look quite nice if you've got it attached on one half and open on the other half. You'll be able to see through and see that detail. Obviously, if you're having it off, you want holes in there and stuff, but we'll look at that when we look at the parts. That shows the cowling being put together for the fitted version with everything closed up. And then we've got some wing section going in. And then we're carrying on with the construction of the engine if you're going to have it on show. So we can see the rocker covers going on there and what have you. So let's hope it's as detailed as it looks in the instructions. Okay, loads of engine parts going together, lots of detail I'm sure. We'll have a look at the plastic in a minute. Then we've got some separate pipe work going on. And we're at step 162 and we've got lots of little components going on. Bits of pipe work. Looks like we've got some of the cables and bits and pieces going in, spark plug cables and the like. And then we're putting some detail on the bulkhead ahead of the engine going in, so all sorts of details going in there. And then we build the framework. We've got more pipe work going on that framework as well. So the framework will look even more complex if you're doing the visible version. Then you're mounting the engine in. More bits to go on top, more pipe work. Then you've got this tank going in. So the tank is made up of 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. And then you've got a little cover of some type going in as well. So that looks really special, doesn't it? So hopefully they've packed some really sharp detail into the plastic parts there. Then we can put these frames on and we can see how they look. So that's going to look really authentic. And then we've got more wing root sections going in. So that looks really detailed. I like the look of that. We can see the little cables and all sorts from there. And picked out in different colours. Should look great. I'm not quite sure what that is. Some form of air scoop, cooling or something. So you can then put the under section on if you want. You can part cover it up. I'm not sure that I'd want to though, if I'm honest. So yeah, you could show it part covered because you're adding these bits on. So they are optional. It'd be interesting to see how well you can make them loose fit. I mean, if they just click in so you can take them off and have a look inside, that would be perfect, wouldn't it? But I'm guessing you might be able to build these up and put it next to it as well. The exhaust is individual, so that's nice. That's going to make cleanup, painting, weathering so much easier. So lovely detail. And then we've got the flaps going in, all separate. They appear to have at least basic detail on them. And some of the parts there at the bottom. Lots of options as we go, and no doubt for open and closed. Step 204, believe it or not. And we've got the final bits going onto the wing. So they're designed to be movable. You can see that the little legs there will glue into the wing and we'll leave the rest of it movable. Then we've got the cannon covers being put together and put into the wing, which then gets us to building the landing gear. So obviously we're going to have an up or a down option. When it's in its up configuration, looks like we've got half a wheel, which is interesting because Does that mean that the wheelbase is not big enough for a full wheel and therefore is dimensionally not right? Or why would that be? That's interesting, isn't it? Then over the page, we're building up the full wheel version. So we've got separate hubs, which I'm really pleased to see. We've got options for different styles of wheels. Looks like we've got nice detail in there as well. I can't see on here that we've got any sidewall writing. So we'll have to have a look at the part. But more hubs. Then we've got the actual gear itself being put together. Separate parts, nice to see. Doesn't look like we've got any brake pipes though. So you'd need to have a look at your references and see if you need to add some plumbing. But we all the way through this, we've got the silhouette for wheel down.
Is there a stand for the wheels up option?
It's not mentioned anything about a stand, so and there's no obvious holes for a stand. That's a really good question, actually. And the other thing it's not got, which they usually have on a 124 aircraft, is they usually have the option of putting a little motor in and being able to motorize it, but you can't do that in this one. Obviously, you can make a stand, which means a bit of modification, but there clearly isn't a stand included, and they haven't talked about a stand. What we do have is weighted tyres, though, for the gear down option. Then we're building up the tail wheel. Nice to see that that's separate part and not all moulded in one lump. Then we've got pit-up tube going on, compasses going together. So we're at final fit stage now with the antenna, aerial and what have you going on. Then we're at the canopy. And it looks like the rear view mirror is a clear part, so that should look nice when painted up. And we've got options on the canopies depending on how we're going to show it: open or closed, closed with the door open and open with the door open, and so on. So lots of variation you can do with a canopy, but actually other than the openings in the wing, there isn't any openings in the side at all. So it's not quite as animated as possibly it could have been. And we're on the last page. So we've got 244 steps altogether. The prop is made up of 4 separate blades, which is nice to see. And then we're adding our spinner. That's the instructions done. Daisy, anything on the chat?
No pilot?
No, there isn't a pilot. So Airfix have recently announced that they're not including pilots going forward, because when they walk around the shows, they see that most of the aircraft don't actually have pilots in. So they're leaving pilots to the aftermarket to reduce the cost. Now, having said that, I don't think they included a pilot on the Hellcat either. It's a very expensive thing to do, a pilot, because they can't design a pilot on CAD. So they have to actually have someone sculpt it. So it's quite an expensive part. So that's why they're dropping pilots throughout their aircraft kits, is my understanding. Airfix, please correct me if I'm wrong. Right, we have spent long enough on the instructions, just over half an hour. So let's have a look at the paint instructions. So what we get is 3 lots of instructions. I will try and do them in order, starting with A. So it folds out to A3. They're double-sided, so we've got B on the other side. And the thing about A, this is the version that's on the box art, is you've got the D-Day black and white stripes, and I know that's going to be a draw to a lot of people. We've already talked about what they are, so I'm not going to go through that. It's the usual sort of layout with the colours mentioned at the bottom and then called out, and the red boxes for the decals. Looks like we've got stencils on the same set of instructions, and we've got some decals for the props, but the yellow wingtips are painted on It does give you a dimension for that though, which is 4.2 millimeters. So you'll need to get your measuring tools out to get that accurate. But yeah, there's lots of little stencils on there, so it's all contained in the one. I quite like the layout of that. We have a research note here that says black and white invasion stripes appear to have been non-standard width of around 10 inches, which was repeated on the wings. It is unsure whether ML214 wore invasion stripes on the upper wing. Photos from the period show other number 126 squadron aircraft with overwing stripes, so the choice is down to the modeller. Right, okay, interesting. So you could do them underneath but not on the top. So optional decals are provided, so you can decide what you're doing in the way of stripes. Yeah, okay, interesting. Got some nice decals on there. We've got some, it says Muscat on there, and various other bits and pieces. There's a little K underneath. So yeah, usual sort of format for that one.
I don't know what that means.
Okay, John Marley, is there a JM on the bottom right hand side of these sheets? Yes, there is. JM. So I'm not sure what that means. If you would like to inform me what that means, John. Does it mean John Marley by any chance? Yeah. So that's B, and B is the one that I am likely to do. City of Winnipeg. Now, many of you will follow Ron Calvary. He lives in Winnipeg, so there's a nice little connection there for me. That someone that I follow is in the city of Winnipeg. It's a Canadian version, but the thing that draws me to it is we've got a little running Popeye there. Popeye the Sailor Man. So I quite like that little decal. So that's probably my draw. A less busy set of paint instructions. Am I buffering? I appear to be buffering on my computer. No?
Mine's working fine.
Okay, we'll carry on then. So, yeah, we've got an option of the mark in there. It's got question marks, so again, up to the modeller. It does say in the research note that the maple leaf is believed to have been red on a white disc, but an alternative is provided, see notes. So that's the green alternative as well. Okay, that's the first two schemes. Let's have a look at the next two ones. Hi Moz, by the way, nice to see you, my friend. Where are we? Oh, we do have a stencil sheet, that's interesting. We'll get to that in a sec. Try and do these in order. So we are at C. So C, very much like B, even the camouflage pattern is largely the same. The only real difference is the different coloured maple leaf. It's a little bit simpler in terms of its presentation, decal wise, but otherwise you've got the same aircraft as B, more or less. If we go over to D, I always like this camouflage pattern. I think the middle blue underneath is a really nice colour. But I have already done this. It's pretty much a copy of what they did on the new Tool 172 Spitfire a couple of years ago now. It's almost a carbon copy of that. And I've built that, so I just want to do something a bit different. If I hadn't, this is the one I'd probably do because it's really colourful and it's a little bit different. But I've done Tropical on the Hurricane recently. So, but if you want to build a US version, this is the one. It's got some nice decal markings. She's called Eleanor. And again, we've got some research notes on there. And we have some dimensions for the upper wing little brown patch there and there. So I'm guessing that's where RAF roundels were painted out for US markings, and we can see some there as well. Okay, so interesting, quite a bit of detailed painting and masking needed if you're doing that paint scheme, but does look nice with the red spinner and everything. So let's go to our last paint scheme, which is E, which is the French scheme, and this stands out because we've got really nice yellow tail, and we've got the clipped wings, so it looks very different to all the others. The camouflage pattern is different, and again we've got these little roundel marks that painted out, and the instructions there. So there is an open question on right, okay, the colour of the rear band is in question, so that's this one here. So the shade of it, okay. And there you go, that is paint instructions. Where you've got some painting to do, they have given you dimensions, so that is really nice. And then as we turn over, we've got location of common stencils, so we've got even more decals to do. And as people that follow my channel know, I love putting decals on, so that makes me smile because we've got lots and lots of decals. That's really nice, and I always like these drawings. Actually, they look really good on your wall. They make great posters afterwards, I think, but I don't have walls to put them on anymore. I'm not allowed to put them in the living room. Right, let's have a look at the decals. Right, so decal sheet, we know the cartograph, so we know the quality is going to be good, or should be. First thing I'm doing is looking for any register issues, because I did recently have them on the Mosquito, but all this looks really good. Our Popeye looks really nice. Yeah, suddenly when you're looking at the size of the decals, you're realising how big this is going to be. Even though I saw it at Telford, and I know it's just a good reminder. So all of our stencils are a fairly decent size. There's nothing here that's really minute, like when we're doing 172. But yeah, they're really nice. Where we've got letters, there's no excessive carrier film. The most carrier film is where we've got a section of letters and numbers, but there shouldn't be any issues with getting them to settle. Even the Eleanor, when I look at the Eleanor here, there is no decal film between these letters, between the loops and things, so that's going to go on really nicely. So this is a really nice set of decals, actually. So as I said before, my observation is they've not been grouped into common paint scheme A, B and C. I'm sure that's a cost saving thing. We can see we've got individual dials and bits and pieces for the cockpit up there as well, so that's nice. They're really clear, very detailed, very, very nice. So I know that the visual from the video isn't great. That's down to YouTube, so you can't see these as clearly as I can, but I will be doing a follow-on video where you can see these more clearly. How are we doing?
Good.
45 watching, thank you very much. If you're enjoying this, we're about to get to the plastic, then please do hit the like. That just helps other people that might be interested in seeing it. So we're going to do this in reverse order so I can put it back in the box the way it came. Let me just grab a knife. Okay. So this was the last one out, and it's got only one in. And first thing you can see is it's the same colour plastic as the Anson. Let's just double check that. Actually, it's not. It's slightly paler than the plastic of the Anson. So that's been made in India, that's been made in the UK, so we can see some differences. So I was going to say it's the same. In fact, I did, didn't I? But it's not. But it's definitely not the soft or softer pale blue plastic that Airfix are famous for. As I run my fingernail on the sprue, it feels nice and hard. So I'm sure we have the same sort of plastic makeup, even if the colour is slightly different. So on this first sprue, we have got some cowling parts. We've got the frame there for the engine. We've got the propeller blades, a spinner, and various bits and pieces. And what I can see is there is some very delicate rivet work on here. Don't know whether you're going to pick that up on the camera, but it looks really nice. I can see it in the light. It's really subtle. And then we've got the raised detail of the larger fasteners. So that's all present and correct. It does look really, really good. It's very sharp. Yeah, that's nice, that. I mean, there's some lovely details here which are picked out really sharply. It's all very, very crisp. Now I'm scanning for any sink. None of these are particularly thick parts, so I wouldn't expect any at this stage, but I always like to keep my eye out. Now what they have done where the fasteners go in, they've left dimples, so you can put a wash in there and give the impression of it being a hole. It would be difficult to drill that out without it breaking, but it won't necessarily be impossible. And actually it's quite thin, so it doesn't look too bad. No doubt someone will do some photo etch replacements, but I quite like that as it is. And we've got these little ejector pins to try and reduce the ejector pin marks that we get. Yeah, surface detail is lovely. The same with this underneath. We can see all these rivets here. Let me flip it over and have a look. So on the inside we've got ejector pin marks. They shouldn't be too difficult to fill. They're all countersunk. So a bit of Mr. Surfacer and away you go. There is some detail in there, but not a huge amount. And again, ejector pin marks, but all standard stuff really. Some of these will be hidden when it's pulled together. Oh, okay, I hadn't appreciated this, but the bottom of the propeller blades, there's a separate section which clicks in, so that's no doubt so they can get the shape right. So that's a nice touch. Whether we're going to get a joint, I don't know, obviously, till we do it, but it's a really thin blade. It does look, in scale, it does look really nice. It's not thick and chunky. Yeah, that's really nice. So I will show you this. We'll go through all the parts, and hopefully it's not too pixelated for you. Anything coming out of the chat, Daisy?
Not that I can see.
Okay. I will go back and read everyone's comments when this video gets loaded up after it's gone live. Right, I'm going to save some time and not rebag these. I can do that afterwards. The one thing about being live is you have to do it as you go. You can't edit bits out. Right, they've actually heat sealed these bags quite close up to the sprues, so there is no movement in there. So that is clearly an attempt to stop damage, making it a bit more tricky to open the bag though. I can feel Peter Oxley rolling his eyes at me opening the bags, but I'm going to build it. I buy my models to build, not to collect potential value over years. Right, we have 2 sprues. Let's deal with the more simplified one, which is Sprue K. First thing I've spotted is a little bit of flash on the sprue, but I can't see anything on the part, so we're not bothered about it on the sprue, of course. The next thing I'm spotting is some lovely texturing. Lots and lots of rivets. I have no idea how many rivets are on a Spitfire, but I'm doubting that they've missed one. There is absolutely loads of them on there. Looks really good. So we've got a number of different options of tail pieces. I think we saw 2 in the instructions, but yeah, that probably makes about sense. So 2 halves, and then 2 halves, 2 different types. So that pretty much covers off the tail all on one sprue. We flip it over, we can see that we've got location pins on the inside but not on the outside edge, so you're less likely to have a fit problem. Obviously pins can hold joins open, and again I can't see any issues with sync, so that all looks really nice. You can see the texturing there in the light. Looks just like a Spitfire should. There we go. Okay, so that is Sprue H. Let's have a look at Sprue K. So all of the sprues appear to be about the same size, and clearly we're dealing with the engine here, which means they've grouped all the parts together, so you only have to have one sprue out while you're working, so that's really nice. They did that with the Hellcat in 124, and it did make working through the tons and tons of sprues they had in there a lot easier. So let's have a look at this engine detail, because it looked really quite detailed in the instructions, and that certainly seems to follow through. The parts are sort of a satin finish. They don't feel matte. Some kits in the last 18 months or so felt a little bit matte, and it was always the allegation that the Hellcat was a little bit bumpy on the surface and needed a sand. That's not the case with this Spitfire. It is nice and smooth, but it's not shiny smooth, if that makes sense. So you can see it's not really shiny hard plastic. But it does have a very slight texture, but nothing like on the Hellcat. So it does have a nice finish, and the moulding is lovely and crisp, really crisp. And the detail, if we look there, you can see all the little rivets on there. It's very crisp. And what I'm not seeing is much in the way of mould seam. So it's not like we've got lots of cleanup on this either. So when, you know, traditionally you get quite a bit of seam on some of this pipe work, but that is not the case at all. Okay, let's start at the top here. I'm not quite sure what those are, but there's a few of them. Then we've got the exhausts. Oh, okay, I get what they are. So the exhaust opening is replicated by putting 2 halves on. So we can see these little parts here are the other half of the open end of the exhaust section there. Can you see? So that will give us a nice hollow, so that'll look nice and authentic. Yeah, like that. Then we've got, that's the little tank that goes underneath, slung underneath the engine there. So all grouped together. And then we've got, maybe these are a little bit thick, I don't know, but the cabling is there and it's all got a slightly different direction, so it does look right. There's nothing there that's copied or anything like that, so it looks really quite authentic. You know, sometimes I say that stuff looks a bit clinical, and that's not the impression I'm getting from this. It all looks natural. I really like this. This is some really good stuff coming out of Airfix on this. Really nice. If there's anything you want me to focus on, let me know. We can show you anything you're interested in. But the detail level is really nice. Engine blocks there. Anything in the chat, Days?
Don't believe so.
Okay, brilliant. Right, that takes us to the next bag. Another 2 sprues. Again, quite tightly in the bag. So this is sprue D and E. So we will deal with sprue D first. And this is a lot of the cockpit part, so we can see the 2 sidewalls, the base plate there, all these bulkheads, part bulkheads, and some of the tanks and details, including the seat there. So let's start with the seat. I'm interested in the texturing, and if you look in the light, you can see there's some really nice texturing on the cushion there. Looks really authentic. And each individual cushion has got a slightly different crease in it, so it all looks natural, it's not just generic. My daughter's laughing, which means someone said something funny. Go on, tell me.
King of the modelling mats, Jason is.
Yeah, I have 5 on my desk currently, and 1 in spare. Yeah. Well, I don't want to get paint on my new table, do I? Flexible hose looks really nice. We've got all sorts of bits of pipework. I'm not going to pretend I know what all of it is. Now, these recesses, someone can tell me, but I think they should be open. I think you might want to go with a drill and open those up. Obviously, you can put a wash in there and emulate that, but I think they would be hollow. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I think. Then we've got the side pieces for the chair there. And then we've got our side walls, which again is perhaps difficult to pick up on the camera, but there is lots of little raised, very slightly raised rivet heads, fastener heads along all of these panels. As soon as we get a primer on here, it's really going to pop out. We've got some nice cabling going on there. Which, you know, if you want to replace it, you know exactly where you're putting it, or you know, use your painting skill to bring it to life. Then we've got these bulkheads. We've got backs for all the dials, so if you're minded to wire things up, you've got a starting point. This is our base plate. Again, no sink whatsoever. Really crisp moulding. Yeah, very nice. Even these smaller bits have got lots of fastener detail on. You're right there, Daisy.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got the gas bottles, pedals, and the straps. Now, the harness straps, they're actually not as thick and chunky as they were on the Hellcat, so they've improved that. They don't look bad at all, actually. So you've got a little loop in there for hanging over the seat, sat on the seat, that'll look all right. All these little cables, there's virtually no seam, if any seam on them at all. This is the back end of the harness. It's actually, it looked chunkier in the instructions than it appears when you get to it. And they've not even chamfered it to make it look thinner, they've just done a thin moulding. There is an ejector pin mark in there, but that'll be against the chair, so you won't see that. Right, let me take you through all the parts. I hope this is coming across okay, but I will photograph all this and do a recorded proper first impressions so that you can see things more clearly. But I assumed that people would be as excited as I am and would like to have a quick look at it, which is what we're doing, not so quick. Okay, Sprue J now. Now, this is the one we have to be a little bit careful with because it's Sprue E, N and J all attached to each other. So it's 3 sprues connected, so it was all done on one tool effectively. So we're going to start at the small end, which is E, and we've got some of the cowling there and lots of texture on there, but it is so subtle and you can see it in the light, but I can't feel it. It's really, really subtle. I think that's the tray for the battery, and our battery's there, so that's probably likely. And we've got a bulkhead there, and look at all the detail in the bulkhead. Really, really nice. Then these are our cannon covers. That's the parts for inside the door. Yeah, just looking inside the door, no ejector pins or anything on the door, so that's all good. And then on Sprue J we've got landing gear. So the landing gear is a single full moulding. We don't have to put parts together. And then we've got these hubs, which are really nicely depicted actually. You've got little valves in the base there. You can see the valves, that's nice. That looked really nice under a wash. So like I say, no brake cables, so that's probably a little bit of lead wire needed to do that, but I'm assuming they were visible. We've got a couple of ejector pin marks on the inside of the gear covers. Whether they get totally covered by that or not, I don't know. Right, now I said in the instructions it looked like there was no writing on the sidewalls, but we do have the Dunlop, and I was hoping that we would. So that looks really nice. We've got the Dunlop writing on the sidewall of the tyres, weighted tyres, so that looks really nice. Yeah, they look really quite good, and separate hubs making everything nice and easy to paint. So I like that. We'll flip it over. Again, no issues. It's lovely and crisp. Detail is nice and sharp. No soft moulding, no sink. And there's our little jig for the canopy. So there we go. I'll show you that up close. Okie dokie. Let's move on to the next bag.
T-sip.
Right, I'm just going to have a quick read of the chat. T-sip Jason. Yeah, you're absolutely right, John. It's gone cold now, but luckily it's mint tea, so that's okay. If Tamiya 148 Spitfire is your wife, the 124 Spitfire is her sister that moulds for Vogue in that models for okay. I've got to say, when I looked at this at Telford and then went and had a look at the Qatari one, this was my preference, and I'll tell you for why. Firstly, it's cheaper. Secondly, it's bigger. And thirdly, and probably most importantly, it's got an engine. What is the point of a 132 scale Spitfire with no engine? What are they doing? And at that price, simply not worth it, because most of the detail is in the cockpit and won't be seen. So I think this is better value for money, better detail, and a better show model. So there you go. That's my thoughts on that. Right, let's have my thoughts on Sprue G. So Sprue G is all stuff to do with the wings. We've got more cannon covers, we've got the wing tips, the bulges for the wings, various covers. I think we've also got the radiator covers there, and the radiator boxes and what have you. We've got the bits that go underneath where the shell casings drop through. So all sorts of bits, loads and loads of texture detail. That's the theme throughout this. I doubt they've missed a rivet. There is so much detail on here. and just there's not much in the way of stress on these, and the reason I'm saying that is because what I'm about to tell you is there is stress texturing on the wingtips. So on the upper surfaces that's slightly rounded, there is some stressed canning there that we can see. Don't know if you can pick that up in the light. On the underside, not so much. So I'm sure that's accurate. Yeah, really nice to see a little bit of stress texturing. Obviously, they did loads with the Anson, so we know they can do a really good job of texturing. I think Airfix are one of the leaders in aircraft skin texturing, to be honest. Yeah, that's really, really nice. Look at all the fasteners on that. It'd take you an hour to count them all. Okay, right, let's have a close-up look. There we go. No issues with any of this. No sink. Nothing that you traditionally would sling at Airfix. It is perfect.
Any sink?
No, I haven't seen any sink whatsoever in anything. But one thing that is noticeable is we don't have any really thick, chunky parts, which is what gives us that sink, obviously. So Airfix have clearly spent time engineering this to make sure that they don't have those issues. So if you think about the Vulcan, for example, this might have been a single piece, and therefore you'd have got sink along the edge. We've got none of that. They've made it two pieces. The plastic is nice and thin, so they have engineered sink out rather than cutting corners and letting sink appear. So I'm really happy with it so far. It's as good as anybody's, if not better. Let's have a look at F. So F, we are still with the wing. There's a lot of the wing spars here. We've got the cannons, we've got the ammunition, various little bits. So again, this is all the wing interior parts. So let's have a look. What we're looking for is ejector pin marks where we don't want them on the spars and all that sort of stuff, which we did have a bit of that on the Hellcat actually. But nothing on here but detail that should be there. That's nice. And actually they look nice and thin, they're not thick and chunky. So yeah, they look really nice actually. Then this is some of the landing gear opening at the linings, and all of this has got detail on the inside, fastener detail. When I look at the ammunition, you can actually see the point of the shell casings sloping down. There's little steps in there, so under a wash that'll look lovely. That's a nice attention to detail. They haven't just done a pointy end, they've put the step in.
A word of aftermarket/PE on this one.
Okay, well, let's talk about photo etch in a moment, because as we've been going through this, I've been putting in my head where I think photo etch may come in and where it would be of value. You can already guess what Edward, for example, might do with this, but that looks really nice. Detail is nice. The gun shapes is good. We don't have openings in the barrels though, so you're going to have to drill those out. Airfix don't do slide moulding, and it's something they need to get their head around, because slide moulding these would have made a nice difference to those. So I can already see brass barrels coming out from Master for this. Yeah. Okay. That is really nice. So let's put that to one side. Right, I'm going to skip the clear parts for a sec, and we'll go to the fuselage half. So these weren't wrapped, these were in between the paper dividers. And the first thing that's jumping out at me is I can see stressed skin, I can see texturing of the plates. It is subtle, it is really subtle, but it's there. I can see it in the light. So we've got some plates that are popped. and bulging slightly. So that is really nicely done. Again, tons and tons of rivet detail and mechanical fasteners being picked out. And where we've got the fuselage going into a curve, what we've not got is we've not got an elongation of the fastener heads. So sometimes they become a bit elliptical because of the way the moulding tool is, but we haven't got any of that. That's a really nice bit of moulding actually. There is, you know, I'm saying that Airfix don't do slide moulding, but that almost looks like that is slide moulding, you know, because there's a little seam there, and that looks like slide moulding to me. If anyone knows for sure, I would be fascinated to know, but that looks like they've slide moulded. This shape on the sprue is a bit of a giveaway. Usually, it's got a flat. In the future, but the detail looks absolutely lovely, really nice. Let's have a look on the inside. We do have some ejector pin marks, there's no getting away from it, and we'd prefer to have them on an internal surface than an external surface. What I will say is in the main area where the canopy is, there is nothing. Where you've got them, it's behind bulkheads, so difficult to see. So if you're not inclined to fill them, you might get away with it, but not if you're going to do a wash or anything. As it is, they're all fairly shallow recessed, so they would be easy to fill. A little bit of wet and dry paper in there, sand them back. Shouldn't be an issue. We've got a couple there as well, but they might be completely blanked off between the engine and the dials. But yeah. Everything all right in the chat, Daisy?
Some people complained about the sound going a minute ago.
Okay.
But
can people hear me now?
Someone said sound back on.
Okay. That's probably YouTube because I haven't shut up for an hour and a bit yet. Okay. Now, interestingly, there's a little square there, and we can see the panel on the other side, and it just makes me wonder if that is to allow us to cut that out at some point when we do a version with the camera in. So I think Airfix have built some future release plans in there. Yeah, that looks really nice. Really, really nice. Okay, that is the fuselage. Then on a separate sprue, we have the engine top cover. Again, lots of detail, both recessed and raised. What I will say is one of the accusations of Airfix is their panel lines are a bit trenchy at times. I would say that's not the case with this. They really do seem really nice and crisp. And again, I think this is slide moulded, you know, because as we look at this, here, all the way down is a very, very slight seam weakness. I can feel it under my thumb. So this is slide moulded. So made in the UK rather than India, the UK manufacturer clearly has the ability to slide mould. I would bet Daisy's left leg that is slide moulded.
Oh wow, that's quite a bet.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose my leg.
Well, I'm fairly sure you won't. Okay, so yeah, that looks really nice. The curve on it is lovely, but you are going to have to get in with a little bit of wet and dry and just take away the slide mould seam. It's only on top of recessed detail, so it shouldn't be difficult to get rid of, but it is definitely there and will definitely show up under paint. So that's something to watch out for. Okay, let's have a look at the next part. So our next sprue has the wing tops on, so we're nearly through this now. and our wing spar. So this is Sprue C, only the 3 parts on there. Loads and loads of detail, and obviously the framework for the panels to go on top. And immediately I'm seeing a big difference to the Hellcat. With the Hellcat, it was a great big thick step down from the surface skin of the wing down to these spars. But look at that, it's what, less than 0.5 millimetre the step. I'd be interested to know what that is. I might put some calipers on that in a bit. But that is a fraction of a millimetre, the step down. So that is really nice, authentic. What you've not got is the location holes for the fasteners to screw things down. But so you'll need to do a little bit of research if you want to emulate that. I have no doubt, coming back to the comment on Etch, that that is something that Edward would replace without a shadow of a doubt. But all of the rivet detail is really nice. Whole thing is lovely and crisp. When we look at the wing spar, we've got fastener detail running the length of that, and the usual heavy seam that you get, nowhere to be seen. I can't even feel the seam. Minimal cleanup all the way on this kit. Absolutely lovely. I have found the tiniest bit of flash, tiny bit of flash there. It stands out as the only bit we've seen. As we look on the inside, we do have some ejector pin marks, but they're just not going to get seen because you're going to see that bit, and then looking in from underneath, you're going to be in these areas here. So I wouldn't be worried about those. We have some lovely fastener detail either side of these fins, and they're nice and thin. The fins are really, really well done. Obviously, we do have ejector pin marks there. They're going to have to be filled if you're having it open. I think they may well be visible. So, but some nice detail in there, nonetheless. Yeah, nothing to complain about with that. Looks really, really good. There isn't particularly a lot of texturing on there, which I'm sure is correct. But there you go, really nice. So that then takes us to the last grey plastic sprue, which is our lower wing. So, one piece lower wing, which incorporates the centre section of the lower fuselage. Really nice bit of moulding, to be honest. First thing I'm looking for is sink. When you've got a big plastic chunk like this, I'm looking at sink, but actually it's not that thick. It's really quite thin. Yeah, I mean the thickest area is the route into the fuselage here, and it's and that's where I'd expect to see some sink, and I can't see any. Days, question.
What's the retail price?
Retail price, I think, is about £94 if you don't have Airfix membership. If you've got Airfix membership, then you get 10% off that. So this cost me 80 something. So yeah, not a bad price actually for the scale, I don't think. Lots and lots of detail. There is some distressed skin surfacing. I can feel the texture in there. See if I can get that to pop in the light. There we go. You can see some texturing on the wingtips there, on the underneath. Yeah, and this is the edges of the scoops there, and there's lots of detail, and there's no soft moulding. It's so crisp. It's really, really nice. And none of this is really going to be seen from the inside, I don't think, because we build stuff in. There's a possibility one or two of these ejector pins might be seen or partially seen, but I'm not 100% sure they will. But I mean, that's the largest single part of the whole kit, and it's beautifully done. I don't see any issues with that. Right, clear parts next. Okay, clear parts, and then we're at summary, I think. Hi Nick Joy, nice to see you there. Hello Jean. How many? We've got 46 people watching at the moment, so don't forget to hit the like button so other people can see it through the algorithm. Okay, clear parts. We've got 2 canopy bulges, and then we've got our 2 different dial options. So even when you're going with the decal options, you've got some detail on there for painting. So yeah, they look really nice. Then we've got I think that's the lamp, isn't it, that goes underneath. And some various lenses there. I'm not sure I saw where all of those were going. And then we've got the wing tip for the clipped wing. And 2 different styles of rear view mirror, which is nice to see. They're really crisply moulded, and distortion, there's a little bit, but
any dreaded spidering in the clears?
I will have a look at spidering in a sec. But there is no distortion in there. Well, when I say none, in the flat bits there's none, but where you've got a curve you've got a little bit. But there's always the question of how much distortion was in the actual thing. When we look at the bubble canopies, yeah, I feared so. Right, so there is no spidering, but there is some scuffing, and it might not come up on camera, but on the top surface there and the top surface there, I have some scratches, some mild scuffing. And actually, there feels like there is a seam running along there. In fact, I can see it. So, there don't appear to be one on that one, but there is a little bit on there. So you're going to have to do a little bit of polishing. It's not a major job, but for some people, if they've never done it before, it could be a bit of a challenge. You could put it on and get away with it, I'll be honest. And if you dip it in some gloss varnish, it may well resolve the issue. But there does appear to be a little bit of a seam. I will take some photographs I can see the seam now. Yeah, I can definitely see there is a seam running from the centre of the sprue gate all the way down to that point there. But it's on that one and not that one. Interesting. I'll take some photographs of these, show up a bit more clearer when I do the proper first impressions video. But yeah, that's our clear parts, and that is the Airfix kit. So let's have a quick talk about what my first impressions are. So let's get the box lid back. Right then, what are my first impressions? Well, as 1/24 scale kits go, that's the best one that Airfix have ever done, in my opinion, or certainly of the ones that I've seen, and I've not built them all. I've not built some of those from the 70s, but of the more recent ones, that is really, really nice. You've got a really good plastic. You've got no issues with sink, no issues with flash, no issues with soft moulding. So really, really nicely presented. It's quite a simple kit in some ways. Most of your technical building is going to be around the engine area, and even that you can cut short if you're going to have things closed up. So if you're going to have things closed up, then your cockpit is the most difficult area. But I think it's going to be just a joy, because you've got lots of decals on the inside, you've got all those different paint colours to do. It just looks like a really nice model. Highlights for me is the level of detail they've got in there and how crisp it is. Obviously the proof of the fit and everything is in the building of it. And we've seen some slide moulding which is added to some of the accuracy of the parts, which is also nice to see. Low lights, well, we've just discovered a little bit of scuffing on the clear parts. That's slightly disappointing. Might just be mine though, doesn't mean that that's something everyone's going to get. As someone pointed out, no stand. So if you're going to have the wings up, you're going to have to come up with some form of stand arrangement yourself. I'm not going to say that a lack of pilot is a low light, because the model has been designed not to have a pilot. If you're going to put a pilot in, you're going to have to go to the aftermarket. But that helps keep the price down, and that means more people can reach the kit. I think that's probably good value for money when you think about the 148 Buccaneer, which wasn't that much less than this. You're getting a pretty good model, I think. Someone asked the question about photo etch. Yeah, clearly Edward will do a set of photo etch for the engine, just like they did with the Hellcat, and no doubt they will. They'll do something for the wings, so they'll replace some of the covers and things and make them thinner. They'll replace some of the covers at this end, and no doubt they'll do some wiring and bits and pieces on the engine. But the engine looks very complete to me, and I think you could build that straight out of the box and not worry about it. The only thing I would say is probably a scratch build add-on is the brake lines for the landing gear. Otherwise, I think it's shake and bake. It's all in the box. It's all ready to go. And I think it's a really well presented model. The box is well presented. The artwork is great. What's not to like? Now, people know I like Airfix, but I don't like Airfix just because it's Airfix. I like Airfix because they actually make really good kits, and the sort of kits I want to build. And they're constantly improving what they're doing. And we've seen today that it's not just about improving the actual model itself, they're improving the packaging, they're improving the whole overall package, and that's really nice to see.
Will you be building it on the channel?
Yes, I will definitely be building this at some point, and everything I build ends up on the channel. Right now, I'm building the recently released Avro Anson. As you can see here, it's ready for masking off and painting. So we are gonna get that done. Then we've got one or two projects that are open at the moment, and then we've got a Wingnut Wings project to do. So I won't be doing this immediately. It's not something that's gonna be being built in the next few weeks or probably even the next few months. But I'd like to think we could squeeze it in at some point towards the back end of next year or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I am looking forward to building it. I love 124 scale aircraft. They're real builders models, and I like building, not painting so much. So that speaks to me. It's a beautiful kit. So I'm going to just have a quick look at the chat. There's one or two people there that I've not seen. John Alec, nice to see you. Thank you, Rims Models. That was Daisy's fingers again. Nice to see you, Nick. Okay, excellent news. Looking forward to seeing you engrossed in this kit whenever that happens, Jason. Okay, yeah, the Anson is looking great. I've got to say, the Anson has gone together like an absolute dream. It's a beautiful kit. And if you've not got one, even if you don't like one, you should get one just to build it, because it's a phenomenal kit. Lovely. This could be a go big or go home build for next year. Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. I think if you've not got this, you should be speaking to your partners about what you might want from Santa this year. My suspect is it should be 124 and Spitfire shaped. Okay, everyone, I've been talking now for an hour and a half, which is long enough probably. I'm going to refilm this over the next couple of days so you can get some really sharp images of the parts. We'll go back through everything much more clearly. I hope you've enjoyed tonight. I will be reading through the chat later on when this loads up. It takes a little bit of time for YouTube to load it up, and once they've loaded the video up, the live chat doesn't appear until they've finished verifying what's in the chat, and that can take a few hours. So if you come to the video and find the live chat is missing, come back to it a few hours later and you'll probably find it's there. Sorry for any of the technical issues, including sound disappearing and things like that. Not quite sure what that was, but that was YouTube, not me. And I'm sorry we had to cancel and restart the show. My learning is not to, basically I planned the show on my laptop, but then I'm actually filming it on my iPad, and it didn't like me using two devices. So there's a learning for me. Hopefully this is something everyone's enjoyed. We will do these again because I enjoy doing them. So Daisy, say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for the chat, everyone. I will be seeing you on Saturday when we do part 1 of the full Anson build. Until then, ta-ta for now. Enjoy your modelling. I'll see you very soon. Thanks all.
Goodbye.
Right, how do we switch it off again? I say that every time, don't I? Right, okay. Thank you, Daisy. Thank you,
Bye.
thank you, thank you. Right, okay. End.